This is the around 22-year-old male who had an instability, 3 dislocation last 1 year, and this is his clinical examination. So let me start from Prathamesh to Nagaraj. Which is your D test clinically for instability?
The apprehension test, sir.
Everybody agrees or difference of opinion? Apprehension. How many of you have got dislocation while doing apprehension test?
I'll not do it very aggressively, sir.
Aggressive.
So practically, I think no one will do it aggressively. We mainly see patient who says, sir, I have 10 dislocations, I am not even going to do any test.
Okay. So,
So just one point here.
yeah.
I just look for, if you really want to find out a patient of instability, just overhead abduction gently, ask him to do it range of motion themselves. They will feel apprehension in that position. You don't need to do the formal apprehension. Second thing, bony apprehension test.
What about Ganges sign?
So bony apprehension test. So if they are at 45, 50 or 60 degree itself feeling apprehensive, that is more relevant, pointing out to bone loss. And about the Gagea hyperabduction sign, you can do it on the opposite side.
Yeah.
So on the opposite side, if you have it, you know about ligament laxity.
So one has to understand that these are the clinical tests. Sometimes you have to do it very less aggression, otherwise you'll land up in the dislocation while examination. So this is an MRI. I will not go in detail because we want to talk about the treatment. The MRI shows a labral injury, and this is the cut sections where you can see anteriorly there is a loss of glenoid. And this is his Hill Sachs as well as the anterior bony lesion, and this is overall bone loss. So let me start from Nagaraj to Prathamesh. Your choice and planning for a 22-year-old weightlifter, 6% bone loss, now not very much interested in weightlifting, but he wants to have a sedentary life. So what will be your option? Latarje?
I think the option
bone
is,
block?
Yeah. So I think the option is in favor of a soft tissue repair, simply because of the primary risk factor that is there. You took it off, saying that he's no more interested in weightlifting or any severe contact sport, so to say. Bone loss is minimal. As long as the tissue quality is very good. I don't know about the Hill Sachs status, but if there is a remplissage that I can add, it adds to, yeah, so there is a remplissage that I can add. Recent data has clearly shown that a soft tissue repair with a remplissage is as good as doing a bony procedure, and he would be an ideal candidate for that.
Yes, same with me.
Same?
Just, yeah, 6% bone loss, I'll go with the soft tissue repair.
Soft tissue.
Both Bankard
Mukesh?
and a remplissage.
I'll do the same in spite if he was going back to wrestling also. Because it's only
Prathamesh?
6%.
Same, sir. I'll do with the arthroscopic procedure, Bankard with remplissage.
Okay, so probably
In spite
we agreed, probably it is the same thing. Like you had to plan your bony procedure, as Nagaraj has rightly said, if you add remplissage with Bankard, this is as good as some kind of a bony stability. 6% is not a too big loss. Imagine your tract is a very around 22 mm tract. Out of that 6% means just a 2 or 3 millimeter bone loss, and that is not a very significant bone loss. Coming back to remplissage, Nagaraj, you do single anchor remplissage or you do double anchor? 2 anchors or 1 anchor?
Usually it's a single triple loaded anchor.
Single triple loaded anchor.
Unless it's a huge lesion, where I know that I cannot cover it up, then I don't mind using 2 anchors.
Yeah.
I do a double anchor procedure,
Double anchor.
a double pulley technique.
Mukesh, double anchor, single anchor?
Single double loaded.
Double loaded. Single anchor, double anchor?
Single anchor, double loaded in 90% of times. As Dr. Nagaraj, 10% of time the lesion is very large. We may have to put 2 anchors.
So let me ask the audience here. How many of you use a single anchor for remplissage? Okay. How many of you use 2 anchor for remplissage?
Very rarely.
Very rarely. Okay. So probably that could be one reason why. Now, if you see on video, I'm putting a 6 o'clock anchor. How many of you use 6 o'clock anchor in your clinical practice? At the level of the glenoid with a curve guide.
So for a lesion like this, which is ending at say 5:30, 6 o'clock, my anchor would come at 5:30.
5:30.
If the lesion is extending say up to 6 o'clock, then I would come from a posterolateral portal and come for a 6 o'clock anchor.
Okay.
But otherwise, most of the time it's a 5:30 position, because if it is at 6 o'clock, you are not going to create a south to north shift. So
Okay.
it has to be slightly above than the lesion.
So what does the literature say about 6 o'clock, Madan? Does it the one which is required every time, or it's you can easily forget it?
You can always go with 5:30. It's
5:30.
always- yeah.
Mukesh, 5:30, 6.
Maximum times, but if while probing Kim's lesion or anything is there and you see that the labrum is coming off 6:37, then definitely one anchor has to be there at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Prathamesh, 6.
Occasionally, I would make a low posterolateral portal and a 6 o'clock ankle. Rare, approximately 10 to 20% of the.
We have a Shirish, Dr. Shirish here. Shirish, 6 o'clock anchor or never? 5. So that is another message here, that not necessary that you can put a 6 o'clock anchor for your labral repair and you can get along without doing anything. About the placement of the anchor, how many of you put the anchor on the face of the glenoid rather than the neck of the glenoid?
Most of the
Prathamesh,
time,
neck,
face.
leg, face.
Face.
Face. Face.
Somewhere in the middle. So I remove a little bit of the cartilage and literally come
So
at the
you
edge.
remove the cartilage from the
Little bit
glenoid.
of the cartilage and I come at the edge. So it's neither on the face, neither completely at the edge.
So anchor placement makes a lot of difference. I think the anchors which are placed on the face of the glenoid will have very good stability and the hold, because the trajectory of anchor is vertical to the glenoid, and that can give you a very good stability as far as anchors are concerned. Number of anchors in glenoid? 3, 2,
Minimum 3.
minimum 3. All of you, minimum 3? Anybody for 2?
2.
2 anchors. Any reason, specific reason?
Sometimes what I do is I take 2 bites.
Mic, closer to mic.
For the inferior,
Huh?
I take
Double
2
loaded
bites.
inferior.
Yeah, double loaded.
And
On
then
the-
one.
One.
The literature says that anything which is less than 3 is have a high failure rate.
Yeah.
So minimum 3, preferably 4. Matlab,
Yeah.
3 to 4 is the good numbers. I would keep it 3 for ladies and 4 for gents.
Yeah. So with invent of all suture anchor, in fact, the smaller size anchor, you can easily put 4, because what amount of drill bit is used is 1.4 mm, and 1.5 mm you can easily create 4 anchor and you can still get a better stability. But when you are using a bigger size anchor, putting 3 is like a big bone loss. So I feel there, but the message here is you should always put minimum 3 anchors for your instability repair. Otherwise, you will not get a better outcome. So let's understand the bone loss, because the first case itself was a bone loss. What is your ideal cutoff for the bone loss, subcritical? Nagaraj, in clinical practice, 10%, 13.5%, 15%, 17%, 20% or 25%?
So as we would all agree, it's not a single factor, but just for discussion purpose, presently subcritical, even worldwide literature says around 12 to 13.5%. 13.5% is the academic cutoff. So the minute it is 12% and above, I start calling it as a subcritical bone loss and think in those lines.
Okay.
But multiple factors, you need to look at.
Everybody agrees for 13.5, or anybody has lower threshold?
Around 15, 13 to 15.
13 to 15. Prathamesh?
So for me, an typical Indian household routine patient, I'll keep it as 15% for my bone block procedures.
Okay.
For a high demanding individual, as Dr. Nagraj said, I'll take it around 12%.
Yeah, the old concept for subcritical bone loss was 25%, which was published by I.G. Itoy. But now, latest article from John Tokish, is 13.5 is a critical bone loss. Yesterday, in fact, somebody presented one article where even 10% is considered as a subcritical bone loss, and one has to be very careful when you are doing this. This is already dealt
Dr.
with.
Roshan, just one point here for the audience. We are discussing about 1% difference. Therefore, the measurement technique has to be standardized. As of today, we discussed with multiple radiologists. Nobody has a standard measurement techniques.
Yeah, off track, on track.
Exactly. So, measurement techniques today are not standardized. Therefore, 1% difference should not be the criterion for your decision. It is multiple factors: contact sports, age, ligament laxity, all of these factors.
Yeah. So we'll go to the next case, that is 26-year-old male, shoulder instability since last 3 months. He had a dislocation which was reduced in the hospital, and this is how he presented to us. Apprehension was positive, relocation test was positive, and shoulder drawer test was positive. So all you can see on a clinical video. This is his apprehension, relocation test, and shoulder drawer. So shoulder drawer is basically you can draw shoulder anterior to posterior so that you can understand the excursion. This is the posterior. Don't, that's a power, you know, that's a power of a common man. So this is MRI. So anybody has any suggestion on MRI, or you want to see more images like this? And a CT scan, right? CT is the most important diagnostic tool for your shoulder surgery, especially instability, because your decision making will change on CT scan, right? So Prathamesh, looking at this CT, area bone loss is approximately 10%. He is not an athletic population, but 10%, significant instability, you can see it. It was a lax anterior to posterior, little bit of hyperlaxity in the shoulder joint. So what your choice?
I would do scopy, arthroscopy.
Arthroscopic.
Bankart with.
Bankart, no bone block.
No.
Any of you, bone block, no bone block?
So unlikely that we will prefer a bone procedure, but when there is such good soft tissue, I would be very careful when he's got that kind of translation. And I would be careful to look into ruling out a Hagel lesion and all the ligament laxity components.
Yeah, he didn't have Hagel, so it was a plain Bankart, but he had a 10% bone loss, and especially in a grossly lax patient, I am little worried about 10% bone loss. This is not subcritical. I can say it's a critical bone loss when it is combined with the hyperlaxity along with the bone loss. So I decided to go ahead with the spine of the scapula graft, like I think demonstrated yesterday. The spine, scapula spine graft. Shirish demonstrated.
Yeah,
it?
Dr. Shirish, yes.
Yeah.
So can you shed some light on your criterion for ligament laxity? You're talking about shoulder hyperlaxity?
Yeah, Byton score was somewhere around 6/9. And that was.
So do you feel generalized body ligament laxity is more important, or shoulder
laxity was more important rather than generalized? I check elbow, knee and all joints, but shoulder itself was a grossly lax. So in such patients, only remplissage along with Bankart, I may not get that kind of stability. Yes, Mukesh, you want to
I
add?
would have added a good hammock here. One, go in the release posterior inferior, get PIGHL, AIGHL and do remplissage.
Okay. So spine of the scapula is one graft which you can learn, especially when you are trying to do a bone block procedure. It's a very simple technique. Yesterday we had a wonderful live surgery. Create your tunnels so that you can easily pass your graft inside with arthroscopic technique. And this technique will give you a phenomenal stability. I believe in 2 tunnels. That is why I always do 2 tunnels. I never do single tunnel, and you can just pass it like what you do it in regular Bankart procedure, and you can get a very good stability. So after this, do you like to repair your Bankart over it, Nagaraj, whenever you do such kind of procedure?
And that brings us to an important discussion, because we've done quite a few of the bone graft procedures over the years. You can never, although we recommend and we always put the soft tissue on top, but the purposes are now defeated. The purpose of this soft tissue is to make sure your graft becomes extra-articular. You retension your shoulder proprioceptors. You don't expect as good healing as a Bankart repair now. So if you're gaining at one end, you're losing at another end. So we need to keep that in mind.
So it is a loss of mobility at the cost of loss of stability. Sometimes when you use the additional procedure, especially in bone block. So
and one more point here.
Yes.
If you have a 10% bone loss and you're putting a 1 centimeter wide graft.
Yeah, it's not 1 centimeter. Spinal scapula is hardly 7 millimeter or 8 millimeter.
So even if you take, say, 7 millimeters, you're contributing to almost 30% or 25% extra. So when you do a follow-up CT, you're going to realize that the body is going to take away maximum amount of bone and keep only as much as required.
So it's like lethargy, minor defect, you do a lethargy. Obviously the coracoid is big and your loss is very small, but still you do it and get the better results.
How many suture anchors you put in them after you put the bone box?
I put 2.
One inferior, one proximal.
If you put 3, you will break those
Wires.
So message here is, whenever you want to do the bone block procedure, always put only 2 anchors. If you try to put 3 anchors, you will damage either a wire which is inside the glenoid, and you will be in trouble. So
here again one small point, Dr. Roshan.
Yeah.
If you keep your drill bits in position, place the inferior and the middle anchor, take an accessory inferior portal and station your sutures there.
Yeah.
And superior anchor you put later. So you can put 3 even with the bone block.
If you look at this external rotation, I'll just run this video again, because if you look at his external rotation, somewhere there is an external rotation restriction on that side. So at 6 months, these patients are usually a loss of restriction as compared to Bankard. Shirish, will you agree? Bankard usually gets a full rotation. But all this bone block, I must have done around 30-40 cases. All of them, they have a restricted range of motion, especially external rotation, in spite of not doing lethargy or remplissage. Any this thing?
In fact, I have seen the other way around. They regain the range of motion very naturally.
Yeah?
Yeah. The minute the minute you place the bone block, the head centers. You don't need to even.
Prathamesh, you have any experience?
I have not seen much difference, sir. It is almost similar to what is in arthroscopic Bankard. Same.
So what is the other option? If you don't want to do a scapular spine, you have any other options? Madan?
Lateral and clavicle also, or iliac crest.
Iliac crest. So how often you do iliac crest for your, because iliac crest is very big, as Nagaraj is saying, you have a small lesion, but iliac crest size is very big.
Yeah, only on revisions iliac crest I use.
Okay.
And Roshan, one more question. Even 10% bone loss, you're going to put a bone lock for the glenoid?
Because he had a hyperlaxity, I decided.
Only for hyperlaxity.
If it would have been a sedentary, no hyperlax, then I would have done only Bankard with remplissage. So, scapular spine is one option, but there is another option, distal clavicle, iliac crest, and even the allograft. Now we have allograft available in India, so you can use the distal tibia allograft. And the position of the graft. So, this is the classical lethargy, but where do you want your position of the graft? Start from Prathamesh.
So the graft should be either at the level of the glenoid or maybe a millimeter down. It should not be proud. So we should aim at having a graft which is almost parallel to the glenoid, but it should not be proud of the glenoid. So but
yesterday when Shirish was demonstrating live surgery, he was telling that if you go below the level of 5 o'clock position, your graft may not be the one which is going to get healed.
You are talking about low, or you are talking about the
low, the inferior one.
Inferiorly, ideally you should go approximately between 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock position, 3 to 5.
Okay.
So the trick is you place your jig between 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock position on the face of the glenoid, and then typically you'll have a flush graft 5 millimeters up to the inferior hole, another centimeter between the holes, another 5 millimeter on top. So
question, sir. Okay. I think we are on with the, I know, sir would have had so many cases, we can go on for the whole day.
Yeah, we can go on whole day, no problem. I have 22 cases here.
Yeah, so the last live surgery for the day is ready, and sir is already exposed. I think we'll move on to the theatre. Thank you so much to Roshan sir for this wonderful.